Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Business World Insights, where we'll discuss about managing fraud risks during crisis. I am Luz Wendy Noble, Business World Central Bank reporter. We are living in what experts dub as a crisis like no other. Much of our everyday worries have been caused by the pandemic. For convenience and to avoid virus spread, many tried their hands and found ease with digital transactions. Culprits, however, have taken advantage of this rise in tech use. They target our pandemic worries and have taken the guise of established financial institutions. How do we manage fraud risks at these difficult times when everything is crucial for our daily survival? We are joined today by two experts who can enlighten us on how fraud occurs and what we can do to not fall into these traps. Let me introduce our first speaker. As head of the operational arm of the Anti-Money Laundering Council, he has been executing the agency's vision and ensuring sustainable reforms since 2017. Under his leadership, the AMLC Secretariat found itself serving the Filipino as a fully functional financial intelligence unit, a reliable law enforcement, prosecutorial, and asset management agency, and an efficient anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing supervisory office. Prior to this, he held positions in the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas for 21 years in the areas of banking supervision, legal counseling, litigation, as well as financial investigation. Our first speaker holds a Master of Laws degree in International Legal Studies from Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C., where he graduated as Dean's Lister. He obtained his Bachelor of Laws degree from San Beda University and his accounting degree from De La Salle University. Let us welcome AMLC Executive Director, Attorney Mel Georgie Rosella. Sir Mel.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for the very kind introduction. And good morning to everyone. Relative to today's forum on managing fraud risks during crisis, let me give you an overview of some of our fraud-related findings as a result of the Anti-Money Laundering Council's study entitled COVID-19 Financial Crime Trend Analysis and Typologies Brief, Series 1 and Series 2. For the guidance of government and law enforcement agencies, covered persons, and the public, this is AMLC's initiative of analyzing financial crime trends in the Philippines, covering a period of the pandemic. Because without a doubt, this global health crisis has presented an opportunity for money launderers and other criminals. We must emphasize, however, that the figures in the AMLC's study are based on suspicious transaction reports, or STRs, filed by covered persons, such as banks, money services, businesses. STRs considered in the study are those submitted to the AMLC and transacted from March 16 to August 31, 2020. There is also the possibility of unreported cases, thus the incidence of fraud may be higher. Going now to the study. 49% of the STRs are related to scheming, phishing, unauthorized transactions, and other violations of the Electronic Commerce Act, with an estimated value of 2.7 billion pesos. These transactions often involve password or personal identification number or PIN phishing through text, email, and phone call spoofing. This includes a modus operandi involving bogus social media customer support that fishes for account details, passwords, and PINs. Funds usually move from the bank accounts of victims to the e-wallets of perpetrators before the funds transfer to another account or withdrawal in cash. Within the same period, 6% of the SDRs are related to swindling and various scams with an estimated value of 1.4 billion pesos. Examples of these schemes are: number one, fraudsters pretending to be affiliated with government units that solicit donations for COVID-19 victims. Number two, emergency fraud schemes through social media account hacking. And number three, sextortion or blackmail attacks. Swindlers also took the pandemic as a chance to scam victims into buying medical items such as alcohol and surgical masks. Bogus sellers would post items for sale on social media. After receiving the advance payment from the buyer victim, the bogus seller cuts off communication and blocks the buyer victim. Majority of these transactions involve local buyers and sellers. In connection with facilitating fraud, a few cases of buying dormant or inactive bank accounts have also been reported. In an entrapment operation in April 2020, the National Bureau of Investigation caught two individuals buying bank accounts for 500 pesos. According to the arrested individuals, they will use the bank accounts to receive funds for their fraudulent activities to elude identification and detection from authorities. The NBI also confiscated a laptop containing a stolen database of email addresses and contact numbers of account holders of a certain bank. This information was to be allegedly used for phishing activities. Apart from this case, around 9% of the SDRs are related to suspected money mules or smurfing accounts with an estimated value of 407 million pesos. Two major e-money issuers reported most of these SDRs, and suspicious triggers include the rapid movement of funds through funneling to several bank accounts and transactions that are incommensurate with the profile of the account holders, who are mostly tricycle drivers, loading station owners, freelancers, sari-sari store owners, and fruit vendors. Further review of Know Your Customer videos submitted showed similar locations and backgrounds. Also, accounts were enrolled in succession under consecutive mobile numbers. Trend observations show that fraud-related STRs increased by 346% from 2017 to 2020. Moreover, the volume of e-money related STRs have grown faster than cash-related STRs. From 2017 to 2020, e-money related STRs increased by 988%, while cash and check-related STRs grew only by 47%. Clearly, criminals have been leveraging on technology. The ease of online retail fund transfers, not to mention the accelerated adoption of digital processes by many institutions brought about by the pandemic, may have altered the flow of funds from cash to digital transactions. Technology works both ways. It can help facilitate crimes, such as fraud, that have been worsened by the adverse economic effects of the pandemic. But technology, along with the heightened awareness among stakeholders, can also prevent crime. So, with its publicly released assessments and studies, the AMLC hopes to increase vigilance against fraud and other types of lawlessness, even beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. Wendy, I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry for that. And thank you for that, Attorney Mel. And we will hear more from you at our panel discussion later. We've heard from the side of a policymaker. So now, let's hear someone from an industry that thrives on ensuring consumer security against looming threats in a digital world. Our second speaker was appointed as the General Manager for Kaspersky Southeast Asia in February 2018. In this role, he is responsible for further implementing the company's strategic business vision for the region's consumer SMB and enterprise markets, and accelerating the growth of Kaspersky's cybersecurity solutions and services across various sectors in the ASEAN. Prior to joining Kaspersky, he had stints in technical, sales, and managerial posts across notable firms such as Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, F5 Networks, and MicroStrategy. Our speaker has an MBA in Finance from Manchester University and a degree in Electronics Engineering from the National University of Singapore. Joining us live from the Lion City is Kaspersky's General Manager for Southeast Asia, Mr. Yo Siang-Tiong. Go ahead, Mr. Yo.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks. Thanks for having me here. My pleasure. While I cope at home in Singapore, I really can see the changes that COVID has brought upon us. As what Attorney Mel has rightly pointed out, technology has helped us a lot during the COVID period, but it's also a double-edged sword. And hopefully I can bring to the attention today that technology is here to stay. But it is important that we harness technology in a very secure way. And that is going to be the main conversations that I will have with you today in the opening remarks. You can see that over the past 1 year, COVID-19 has turned a lot of things topsy-turvy. We begin to work from home. But guess what? The criminals, especially the cyber criminals, they are more apt to work at home. In fact, they have been working remotely all the time. Right? So we have been tracking all the statistics along the way. In 2019, on the average, we detected about 340,000 unique malicious files every day. Well, if you think about it, that's quite a lot of unique malicious files. And when 2020 hit us, guess what? The number increased to 420,000 unique malicious files every day. And there's no signs of stopping. Now, this malware refers to things like commodity threats, which endpoint solutions can address. The alarming truth is there is a lot of uptick in organized crime groups. You can see on the screen, these are the cyber criminal groups that we track along the years. When I joined Kaspersky in 2018, we were tracking about 110 organized crime groups. Some of the more notable ones are here, or the more notorious ones are actually here on the screen today. But in 2020, we started tracking more than 200 malicious actors. And that is the rate of increase in the cyber criminal activities in the world. You can see from the statistics, not just an increase in the outcome, which is the number of unique malicious files that we notice, but also the increase in number of actors who jump on the bandwagon. Back close to home, in Philippines, we see 444 million web threats in 2020 alone. So what do we mean by web threat? Web threats are those that is launched from the internet. We also track threats that is launched from, say, your USB stick or your CD drive and all that. But just from the internet alone, 44 million web threats that our software has stopped. So this trend doesn't come as a surprise because every one of us work from home nowadays. Everyone goes online. Apart from working from home, we all start to game. We start to have our Netflix. We start to have our streaming devices active at all time to kill time. Now, what this means is the attack surface for the cyber criminal now has increased a lot. And therefore, it's important that we understand how to keep ourselves safe for ourselves, for the company we work with, and also at the community at large. So on this note, I would like to leave you with the statistics so that you understand the heightened activity. But I also want to leave you with the optimism that technology can actually provide the solution to give you a safe and beautiful world. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights, Mr. Siang Kyong, and for reminding us that there is that increased threat while we are using these digital services. So we should also be cautious of how we manage our digital dealings. So now we will go to our panel discussion where we will also be joined by Sir Mel from Attorney Mel from AMLC. The first question is for Attorney Mel. Given the rapid rate of technological progress, how can legislators and policymakers keep up with the increasingly sophisticated ways technology is being used for crime? Are you looking into introducing new regulations that are more geared towards this digital transactions?
Yeah. So thank you for that question, Wendy. Uh, I think legislators as well as policymakers need to continue to educate themselves. We need to learn how frauds are being undertaken nowadays. And apart from educating ourselves, we also need to, and of course, before the next one, we also need by educating means we also need to be learned about the frauds on how frauds are executed and uh, also in addition to that learning about frauds are being executed, we also need to partner with our foreign counterparts. They may have already the solution to the existing problem that we are encountering. And by partnering with our foreign jurisdictions or foreign partners, they are able to share their experience. And so it is also beneficial to us. So the saying says we learn from our mistakes, but we don't just learn from our mistakes, we from the mistakes of others. And so we learn from mistakes, not just our own mistakes. So the second thing that I need to emphasize is that policyholders and legislators should always communicate with each other, communicate with law enforcers because they are the frontliners, and communicate with other stakeholders because through communication we learn from each other. We learn that there may be some issues and concerns that is merely limited to the stakeholders or merely limited to the legislators. And we also need to
Yes, Attorney Mel. Okay, so for now, we'll get back with Attorney Mel later. We'll try to continue the discussion on regulation. Now, my next question is for Mr. Yo Siangkyong. Mr. Yo, I recall cybersecurity officials from local banks here said that culprits usually attack during the long holidays. And incidentally, next week, Filipinos will observe the annual Holy Week. Can you tell us more about common fraud schemes in the country? And if you can briefly compare this to what's also happening in other parts of the ASEAN? What can a layperson do to protect themselves against these threats?
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Sir Mel is already here. Would you like to finish your statement, sir? Or
yeah, okay.
okay,
Well, I don't know where I stopped, but let me proceed with communicate. So as I was saying, the first one is to educate continuously, and then the second one is to communicate. The policymakers as well as legislators should continuously communicate with each other. There may be special circumstances where it is specific for legislators or for policymakers, but they also need to communicate with other stakeholders, including law enforcement agencies. So, in order to have a more comprehensive policy in regard to fighting fraudulent crimes in the virtual world. And the third one is we always need to collaborate, not just communicate, but also to collaborate with each other. Uh, for the part of AMLC and the PNP anti-cybercrime, we continuously collaborate with each other. A lot of crimes are committed and referred to the anti-cybercrime, but the public doesn't know that these are referred to the AMLC, especially if the AMLC's skills are needed, in particular in regard to accessing bank accounts. So we share and collaborate information with our anti-cybercrime, particularly the Philippine National Police. And lastly, not just collaboration, not just communication, not just educating ourselves, but also we need to invest in technology. The antithesis of technology is obsolescence, and we don't want to be obsolete in regard to our technology. Criminals continue to upgrade themselves, both materially, technically, and of course financially. And so we also need to invest in technology. So combining ECCI, or education, communication, collaboration, and investment, I think we should be able to cope up with the criminals.
Okay, sir. So investment in capacity building to manage fraud risks and interplay not just with local regulators, but also your foreign counterparts in terms of regulation. Thank you so much for that. Now let's go back to Mr. Siang Pyong. So we were saying a while ago that the Filipinos will observe the annual Holy Week next week. And as local bank officials said before, culprits are taking advantage of long holidays. Of course, most Filipinos would stay at home this time because of the pandemic, but still, we do not discount that such fraud risks can still occur, right? So can you share more about this common fraud schemes, not just in the Philippines, and maybe share how this compare with other parts of the ASEAN? What can a lay person do to protect themselves against these threats? Go ahead,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Siang Pyong.
Right. First of all, I need to start by echoing what Attorney Mel has just said. The ECCI initiate the ECCI 4 different pillars that he's talked about. Collaboration and exchange of information within the international community is actually very, very important. For Kaspersky ourselves, we also collaborate with this community. We're in constant conversations with the different government, the cyber criminal response team in each country. We are also plugged into Europol, and we even have a worldwide collaboration with Interpol to exchange information with them. The reality is cyber criminals see no boundary. They don't observe national boundary. And that is exactly the same thing that we see when it comes to what happens during holidays. Holidays in Philippines, this may be a golden week for Philippines, but it's not a golden week for other countries. Now, what that means is they will work, and they will continue to work very heavily on Philippines because this is a good time to strike. So on what kind of tactics and techniques that were likely used? Well, I would say for most cyber fraud, where be it attacking the individual or the company, there are various tools that they can deploy. And what we see as the most prevalent tool is really phishing. And phishing can come in different forms. It can come through your email. It can come through your social media as well. So it can be your Facebook, it can be your Instagram, it can be your WhatsApp, it can be your Telegram, your Viber. And what they usually would do is they will give you like a bait, something that interests you. So today, the thing of interest could be, say, COVID. And we have seen a marked increase in COVID-related baits as well. That aside, I will show you the statistics later. But the point is they will give you a bait. And when you click on it, it will likely bring you to a website, a compromised website that will feed you with the malware. And that's the first point of entry. Right? So what we see is this happens very often. And naturally, during the long holiday, when everyone are in a celebrative mode, their guards are down, they exchange greetings. Right? They exchange greetings, they exchange good news, they exchange good information. Well, sometimes such things does come with those information. So yes, so awareness, and that's actually the one of the points that Attorney Mel brought up as well. That awareness is very, very important, and therefore it's important to understand what looks like suspicious phishing kind of attempt, and don't click on it, right? Or don't open the attachments. And when that fails, technology can be your safety net to protect you. Right? I just take myself for example. There was once I bought something on Shopee, and I was expecting a delivery And coincidentally, there was an SMS that came purporting to be DHL. Oh, your parcel has been delivered. Guess what? I was expecting a parcel, right? So I click on it. Boom. So luckily, I have my software to guide to protect me. But the point is, look, I am in the cybersecurity world myself, and even I can make mistakes. Right? So yeah. So first, protect yourself, and if should anything fail, there must be a safety net.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing your experience, Mr. Yo. That really shows us that no one is exempted from the threats,
No
right?
one is infallible.
Okay, so now the third question is for both of you gentlemen to answer. Last year, while we were in the midst of a pandemic, which is still going on right now, the BSP said they received some 20,000 concerns from financial consumers. About 13% were cases related to fraud and unauthorized transactions by scammers. So the question is, what is it with an economic crisis and the prevalence of fraud? Do you see a correlation between the two? Let's start with Attorney Mel.
Yes, Wendy. This is precisely the reason why we conducted our study during the pandemic, which is really to scan environmentally, to conduct an environmental scanning of the circumstances in regard to fraud. And lo and behold, the result of our study really points out to an increased activity in regard to online and virtual frauds. And as a matter of fact, we were able to monitor, as mentioned during my initial presentation, an increase in suspicious transaction reports relative to online frauds. Because the result of our study really leads to a conclusion that says fraudsters are leveraging on technology in performing malicious acts and frauds. And so, yes, we can confirm that the pandemic resulted to an increase in crime, particularly in fraud.
Mm-hmm. Sir Siong, Mr. Yo, would you like to add something?
Yes, we have also, yes, certainly we have seen an uptick in the pandemic-related cyber criminal activities. Just of course, in 2020, we did a study ourselves on this as well. We detected that in Philippines alone, there are 10,765 pandemic-related websites. So these are websites that have been set up so that if you click on any bit in your social media account, like your Facebook or your WhatsApp, it may purport to be selling vaccine or to give you more information about the COVID. You click on it, it goes to such website. And there are 10,000 websites that were detected in Philippines alone. Just this year, in the first 2 months of 2021, we already detected 3,732 such web links. And yes, certainly this shows that the criminals are taking advantage of the pandemic to strike. Yes.
Okay. In that case, the problems caused by the pandemic also becomes the alluring point for these fraudsters to engage in this malicious businesses. Okay. Now let's have Attorney Rosella. This question is for you. So far, how has legislation and policy adapted to combat fraud? And how do you see the development of anti-fraud measures in the future, given that we've seen the immense surge in digital transactions?
Uh, I think we have enough laws to implement in regard to fighting online frauds, and the BSP itself, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, has declared that it is leveraging on technology to counter frauds, of course, and the BSP itself is investing in digitalization. In the same manner that the AMLC continues to invest in our monitoring of suspicious transaction reports, in that we also invested in technology so that we can be alerted in regard to significant fund movements, as well as the frequent and more high risk crimes. We have configured our system to generate alerts so that we can also monitor. So for the policymakers, I think the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has also issued some regulations. Even the Supreme Court has issued the necessary technology related, IT related circulars. I'd like to mention also that the Electronic Commerce Act of 2000 is very effective tool, although it's a very early legislation, but I think it addresses the crimes very well. In regard to the Data Privacy Act, I think there is also sufficient regulation in that regard, because IT companies or even Philippine or domestic corporations are mandated to relay to the National Privacy Commission within 3 days that there was an issue in regard to their security, on IT
Yeah.
security, cyber security. The Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, I think, is also properly in place. As a matter of fact, the Department of Information and Communications and Technology has just recently created the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Council, or CICC, and I think the CICC is establishing a very well connected network insofar as coordination is concerned. So, those are just some of the regulations which I think are very helpful in fighting online frauds.
Okay, those were we started from E-commerce Act of 2000, and then we have the Cybercrime Act going forward. So let's see what's in it for us in the coming years, because technology has been booming, and yeah, the development of fraud in many different ways. So next question this time is for Mr. Siang Tiong. How is technology being used to commit fraud and other economic crimes? And how can technology such as maybe artificial intelligence be used to combat fraud and these crimes?
Okay, so technology, of course, when you're talking about digital fraud, digital criminal activities, then technology is the center of everything, right? So yes, how do we prevent it? There are many ways to prevent it, and Attorney Mel has also highlighted some of them. One is a monitoring and a response to this. You can see that a lot of countries have set up the regulatory approach to this. They have also set up a monitoring center to be able to monitor fraudulent and criminal activities. And through constant communication and collaboration with the international community, such information is actually fed into the center so that they can continue to monitor and detect early ahead of time. And that's where we also actively play in these activities. Then the next thing is, of course, the awareness that needs to be brought into the man on the street, the layman, you and I who are using the technology. So technology plays a very important part in the prevention. And the criminal does use technology in a different way as well. They collaborate, they share information, they share their codes, they sell each other codes, they have cyber criminal activity services in the cloud as well. And there are many ingenious, very creative ways of using the tools, right? And they do sell this information actively on the dark web as well, so that they will help each other to gain access. So back to what Attorney Mel has spoken about, the CCCI, collaboration, communication, and continued investment in technology to be able to prevent and detect early. That I will say is the crux of everything that technology can play. Yeah.
Okay. Clearly, combating fraud risks is a team effort, right, between the corporate, the regulators, and of course us as consumers. So at this point, let's hear some closing statements from our speakers, what they want to impart our viewers. Maybe you can include some cyber hygiene tips for our viewers so they can be protected against fraud. Let's start with Mr. Siang Tiong this time.
Thank you. So yes, I would say the preventing cyber fraud it needs to be a collaborative, it needs to be a concerted effort across all fronts. On the regulation front, on the legal front, on the collaboration with the international community, not just within the government, but also with the cyber security firms like us who are usually ahead of the game, because we monitor. Like I say, our experts monitor closely 200 over cyber criminal groups around the world, and these are huge gangs. Yeah. So these will help us to stay ahead of the game. Now, at the individual front, with the individuals and with the company, the awareness is also very important. Today, we are all working from home. And with working from home, what it means is you are remotely logging into your company's network. What that means is your company's network is effectively stretched into your homes. What that means is also to attack the company, there are many surfaces of attack now, including a compromise to your individual device. Could mean a compromise not just to your home environment, but also a compromise into the company that you're associated with. And so the heightened awareness and the ability to stop things at the track is actually very, very important. So for the last few years, we have been very active in participating forums like this, in reaching out to the schools, to the university, in our little way to spread the word. And certainly with media like BusinessWorld and with regulators and the government officials like Mel, like Attorney Mel, will be able to spread the word to a wider audience. And that is very critical. Fighting cyber criminals and fighting cyber frauds starts with the individual. And that must always be the front line. Yes.
Okay.
But as I always say, technology is a double-edged sword. It helps you, and it also helps to protect you. So we need to move forward, and we need to embrace technology in a secure way.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Siang Tiong. Apparently, it's going to be a long battle against fraud as digitalization continues, and we should be prepared to manage these risks. So I hope you stay safe and stay safe in Singapore, and thank you for imparting your expertise with us. Again, many thanks to our speakers, Attorney Mel Georgie Rosella and Mr. Yo Siang Tiong. Also, thanks to our media partner, the Philippine Star, and to everyone who joined today's discussion. Join Business World Velocity One-on-One series next week at Monday at 11 a.m., themed Moving Forward from the Pandemic's Turns and Shifts. Follow Business World's social media pages to be updated for our next projects. Again, I am Luz Wendy Noble, and this has been Business World Insights.